So Conkeldurr's got a couple of aesthetics going on that I just overall enjoy. First of which, it has those two concrete pillars that it uses to just smack its opponents around. It's also got that goofy grin on top of the clown nose. Like, just take a moment to appreciate the look on this thing's face. Like, this thing enjoys using those pillars to smack its enemies around with. And on top of that, it also gives off old man vibes, which, considering my knees, like to remind me that they aren't as springy as they used to be. I get that. I feel that. Like many of my friends and family, even some of my coworkers have called me old right to my face, despite, you know, only being in my 30s. So that's a thing. But to be fair, I once leaned the wrong way and my left knee was like, nope, and just seized right up and just would not extend. So that was a thing. That was fun. But anyways, we're not here to talk about me and my bad knees. We're here to talk about Conkeldurr, and I guess it's lack of knees because it's got two little stubby legs. But anyways, the main thing here is let's jump right on in to Showdown and let's talk about it. So Conkeldurr keeps things nice and simple with its mono fighting type. It has 3 resistances and 3 weaknesses. As far as resistances go, it resists dark, bug, and rock. And then as far as its weaknesses go, it's weak to psychic, fairy, and flying, which is overall fairly decent. It gets really good coverage moves to hit its types that do threaten it for super effective damage. So it balances out. Conkeldurr has a great ability pool as well as a great physical move pool, and it's also got some great status moves, so I'm looking to talk about those today. So as far as Conkeldurr's abilities go, it gets Guts, Sheer Force, and Iron Fist. As far as Guts goes, if you have a status condition, you get a 50% boost to your attack stat, and if that status condition is the burn status condition, well, you don't have to worry about burn lowering your attack. Guts just ignores it, so that's great. Conkeldurr is probably best off with Guts, but Sheer Force and Iron Fist are really good abilities as well. Sheer Force negates the secondary effects of the user's abilities to give those damaging moves a 30% boost. So it's basically a built-in life orb. And if you throw a life orb on Conkeldurr as well, or rather any Pokemon with Sheer Force for that matter, it also negates the life orb recoil damage for those secondary moves. If you have a move like, say, Mach Punch that doesn't have a special ability, Sheer Force won't negate the life orb, but say, for example, if you have Fire Punch, which does have a 10% chance to burn the target, Sheer Force negates that, and therefore it also negates the life orb's recoil. So that's really nice, and you can hax out some fun damage with Sheer Force life orb. I mean, Landorus there, or not Landorus Therian, Landorus Incarnate, case in point. You've seen what it can do. Conkeldurr, it can be a slower physical variant of that for sure. And then as far as Conkeldurr's hidden ability, Iron Fist goes, Iron Fist increases the power of punching moves by 20%, and Conkeldurr gets a lot of punching moves, and that can be really nice. And plus, in Generation 9, they did introduce the item, the Punching Glove, which also gives a boost to punching moves as well, while also protecting you from effects that cause from physical damage. We're going to bring up the Punching Glove right away, because I could be wrong on that. I could be mixing that up with the protective pads. But anyways, Punching Glove. Yeah, so the moves don't make contact, so you don't have to worry about, like, say, the likes of the Rough Skin ability that damages the opponent or the damager on contact with the target. We're just going to leave that in. Anyways. I also made a short today, too, saying that I did not make good life decisions, and I stayed up kind of late, and yeah, anyways, I woke up to the sound of one of my neighbors using a chainsaw. Anyways, not the point. Point is, we're here to talk about Conkeldurr, not me and bad decisions. So, as far as Conkeldurr's abilities go, you do have the Sheer Force for the Life Orb. You have the Iron Fist to boost up punching moves, which can be further stacked with the Punching Glove. And then you have the Guts to just give Conkeldurr a 50% boost to its attack stat, which means Conkeldurr has plenty of damaging modifying abilities at its disposal. It has 3 for that matter. Anyways, so what are we going to talk about as far as move options go? Well, as far as stab options go, Conkeldurr gets 4 really good fighting type stab moves right here. It gets Drain Punch right here, which gives it sustainability. It's a base 75 power move. and you recover back 50% of the damage that you dealt. If you are benefiting from either Iron Fist or Guts, you're going to have a little bit of an extra damage modifier to Drain Punch, which means you're therefore going to get more HP back. You get access to Close Combat, which is a base 120 physical fighting type attack. You do lose one stage to both of your defenses each time you use Close Combat, but if your Guts boosted, well, you don't need defenses if your opponent is knocked out. Let's just put it that way. So you could benefit from having Close Combat on Conkeldurr right there. Another great fighting type option is the fact that Conkeldurr gets Hammer Arm. Hammer Arm is a base 100 physical fighting type attack with 90 accuracy, and it lowers the user's speed stat one stage. Normally, that would be a deterrent to avoid, but Conkeldurr is super slow, so it can benefit in Trick Room. So if you make yourself slower and then get Trick Room up, or if you're already in Trick Room, Conkeldurr will be going earlier in the turn proceeding. So you could really make the case for running Hammer Arm, and plus a Guts boosted Hammer Arm can do a lot of damage, and unlike Close Combat, you're not dropping your defenses. So there is that. So far, we've talked about Drain Punch, Close Combat, and Hammer Arm, all of which are fairly hard-hitting physical fighting type moves. Drain Punch being the weakest of them, but it does give you back some health. The last fighting type option is going to be Mach Punch. Mach Punch is a base 40 physical fighting type attack, and this has a priority of 1, so long as Psychic Terrain is not up on the field, or so long as your opponent doesn't have a Pokemon like, say, Farigiraf with Armortail, Zarina with Queenly Majesty, or even Bruxish with Dazzling. You don't have to worry about that. Low speed, because Mach Punch will have that priority of 1, and you can get ahead of your opponents. Now, those Pokemon that I just mentioned, they all have abilities that negate priority, and Psychic Terrain also does that, so you do have to be a little bit careful there. But if you wanted to, you could hypothetically double up on, like, say, 2 of these fighting type moves, and you could go from there. Like, you could have the Mach Punch and Drain Punch, or you could have the Mach Punch Close Combat. Maybe you go for the Close Combat turn 1, do some major damage. Your opponent doesn't pick up the knockout into Conkeldurr. Conkeldurr says goodbye and hits them with a Mach Punch to seal the deal. Could be something like that. So Conkeldurr has some really good physical fighting type options at its disposal, and the whole reason why we're also focusing and fixating on the fact that it is physical moves is Conkeldurr's got a base 140 attack stat. Its stats are relatively nice. It's got base 105 HP as well, which means it's going to have some natural bulk to it. It's got 95 defense, which is great. Now, if your HP stat was a bit lower, I'd say that's not as good, but you have a base 105 HP, which is definitely helping that 95 defense. And then as far as the rest of the stats go, well, they start getting lower. You have 55 special attack, but this thing's a physical attacker anyways. We don't care about that special attack. We have 65 special defense, but you know what? It is what it is. The 105 HP is going to help you out, and technically you could slap an Assault Vest or a Psychic Seed on this thing to boost up its special defense. So there's definitely ways of patching that up for sure. And then you have 45 speed. So definitely not the fastest thing out there. Definitely not something that you would want to throw a Choice Scarf on, or Tailwind for that matter. Trick Room is going to be really nice at the end of the day for Conkeldurr. This thing has been known in previous formats to be phenomenal in Trick Room. So if you're going to play Conkeldurr, probably for the best to not waste your time with trying to rely on Tailwind to boost up your speed. Now, don't get me wrong, there's definitely the right situation where that could come in very handy and benefit you, but just don't go right out of the gate thinking you're going to be outspeeding everything with Tailwind is all I'm trying to say. Anyways, as far as some Terra types go for Conkeldurr, it kind of depends on what you want your ability to be. If you're going to be running the Guts ability, you don't really have to rely on Terra Fire because you want to get burned. And if you're running Guts, you're probably going to be running a Flame Warp to make sure that you burn yourself. So as far as that goes, you could potentially double up on your fighting type stab with Terra Fighting just to make sure that everything just does major amounts of damage. A Guts boosted Terra Fire or Terra Fighting a Mach Punch could be really scary, especially with that 50% boost from the Guts and the double stab on Terra Fighting. Like, you're probably going to decimate a lot of things. Just saying. Another Terra that you could potentially do is go for Terra Dark. This thing is weak to psychic type attacks, and honestly, expanding force psychic terrain is probably going to be really ugly in the early days of Regulation H. So being able to turn into a dark type and just be straight up immune to psychic type attacks could be phenomenal. So there is that. And then another Terra that you could potentially look at if you're not running Guts is going to be Terra Fire, and then that way you don't have to worry about getting burned. Sheer Force and Iron Fist do have the one drawback of the fact that the burn condition can still reduce your attack output, so you do have to be a little bit weary that way. Another Terra that I think could be really nice is Terra Grass, especially since it does take a turn for the Flame Orb to burn you, so you don't want to be put to sleep. So going for Terra Grass could be nice, and plus that would allow you to ignore Rage Powder, which is a great thing at the end of the day, and plus you don't need to waste an item slot on these safety goggles. So before I get into some of Conkeldurr's coverage moves, I do want to talk about some items as well. So as I mentioned, the Flame Orb is really nice because at the end of the turn, the Flame Orb will try to burn the holder of it. So if you're not statused, you will get the burn. If your opponent goes for, like, say, a Prankster Thunderwave and gets the paralysis on you, well, yeah, it's gonna paralyze you. But if, say, you have a healing move that recovers your status condition, this one's not going to be quite as applicable to Regulation H because Cresselia is not going to be allowed. But for example, Cresselia's Lunar Blessing heals the status condition of your partner as well as Cresselia while giving back some HP. So technically you would remove the burn condition, and then the Flame Orb would just say, oh, hey, you're not burned anymore, let's fix that, and then just reburn you. So hypothetically speaking, if there's a healing move that can heal your status condition, the Flame Orb will just still try to burn you at the end of the turn. It's not like a single use item at the end of the day. And technically speaking, if you have the move Fling, you could also fling a Flame Orb at something. And if the Flame Orb makes contact with whatever you fling it with, that they'll get burned too. So just saying, that's there too. I think the fling is a funny gimmick, but probably not something that Conkeldurr needs to really rely on. But anyways, Flame Orb could be a really nice thing. Another thing is Life Orb could be great, especially for Sheer Force sets, since that'll give you the natural 30% boost in power, and Sheer Force will negate the HP reduction, which I did mention earlier. And so there is that. And Conkeldurr does get a fair amount of moves with secondary effects to benefit from Sheer Force and the Life Orb, so that's going to be really handy. Another thing, too, is you could go for that Assault Vest right here to give yourself that 50% boost to your special defense. You could also just say, I just want to do as much damage as possible for a Choice Band on Conkeldurr. That's definitely a thing, too. You could also have Choice Banded Mach Punch with Terra Fighting, or whatever Terra of your choice and whatever coverage move. You might go a defensive Terra, or you could go for an offensive Terra with Conkeldurr. I think it's fair to say an offensive Terra could be nice and beneficial, but typically you do see defensive Terras to, survive. So my main point is you could run that Choice Band and just double up on as much damage as possible. Maybe you have some redirection support on your team right next to Conkeldurr. That could be really handy. Like Clefairy with Friend Guard could be really nice. Another item that you could do is the Expert Belt, which gives you a 20% modifier in damage to the super effective attacks you do. So, like, say, for example, maybe you're running Poison Jab on Conkeldurr, which is super effective against Fairy-type Pokemon. Well, Poison Jab's now going to get a 20% boost in damage. So that's going to be really nice at the end of the day. Now, the only thing about the Expert Belt is that only applies to super effective hits. Neutral and resisted attacks do not care about the Expert Belt. So just use that with a little bit of caution if you do want to run the Expert Belt. But the last item that I was thinking of for Conkeldurr is actually the White Herb. And then this way, if you run into Intimidate, the White Herb will activate and just clear that for the first time. If you go for close combat and lower your defense and special defense one stage, the White Herb will activate and just reset them back to 0. And I guess the other thing too that I forgot to mention is you technically could run a Clear Amulet too. So you could run a Clear Amulet just to get around Intimidate, but honestly, I don't think it's going to be as needed on Conkeldurr compared to, say, something like the Flame Orb for a Gut set or even a Life Orb for a Sheer Force set, which means you could benefit from putting a Clear Amulet on something else instead. So I think that could be really nice as far as items go. Now, for starters, as far as some coverage moves go, we have normal type coverage here with Facade. Facade is going to double in power when you have a status condition, so this will naturally synergize with Guts. So Facade's going to naturally jump to 140 power from 70 just for having a status condition alone. Guts will give you a 50% boost to your attack stat, which means this Facade is just going to just nail a lot of things. And the beautiful thing about the normal typing is not many Pokemon just straight up resist it. Now, Ghost types are naturally immune to it, and then you have Steel and Rock that do resist it. But you know what the beautiful thing about that is? Fighting types hit Rock and Steel for super effective damage. So if your opponent thinks they're being cute and going for a Terra Rock or Terra Steel, well, you just switch to a fighting type move instead. It's not going to help you with the Ghost typing, but this thing does get Knockoff, which that's going to be the next move that I wanted to bring up anyways. Knockoff right here hits Ghost types for super effective damage because it is a Dark type move, not a butts. I'm overtired. A Guts boosted Knockoff will do a lot of damage to things, especially since Knockoff gets a 50% modifier in damage on the turn it removes the item. So that could be a really good coverage option right here. Conkeldurr also gets some great ground type coverage in both the form of High Horsepower, which is a single target ground type attack that is 95 power, 95 accuracy. Now, it doesn't have a secondary effect, so it's going to be useless on Sheer Force. But on Guts, that could be really nice. And then a spread option is the fact that Conkeldurr gets Earthquake. So it goes up in power from 95 to 100 compared to High Horsepower, and it is a spread move that hits the entire field. So you might want to have a flying type Pokemon next to Conkeldurr, or you just might want to click Protect to make sure you just don't hit your own partner. Technically, what you could do too, especially if you're weary of spread moves from your opponent, you could go for Wide Guard, and Wide Guard does protect you from your own spread moves. So in theory, maybe you have, like, say, something that you don't want to necessarily hit with an Earthquake that knows Wide Guard. You just click the Wide Guard, and then Conkeldurr will just go for the Earthquake and hit your opponents instead of just hitting the entire field. So you do have that, which is a nice coverage option right there. And plus, ground hits Steel types and Rock types naturally as well, but it does hit Poison types, and that's the most important thing because Poison does resist fighting. So you do have that to keep in mind. And then you also get Poison Jab, as I mentioned earlier, for hitting Fairy type Pokemon. And this is a move that does have a secondary effect, so this would also benefit from Sheer Force Life Orb stuff as well. And honestly, there's nothing wrong with single target poison type attacks that you could have on a fighting type Pokemon. So Poison Jab could be really strong at the end of the day. And then Conkeldurr also gets access to the elemental punches. And by that, I mean it gets access to Fire Punch, it gets access to Ice Punch, and it gets access to Thunder Punch. Now, 2 out of 3 of those moves are super effective against flying types, which is really nice right there. All 3 of these moves also benefit from Iron Fist, so maybe you want to play a Iron Fist Mach Punch set, and then just for some general coverage, you could have that 20% modifier applied to your elemental punch of choice. Honestly, I really like Ice Punch out of the 3 of them, because it does let you hit grass types for super effective damage while still maintaining the super effective damage into flying type Pokemon. So that could be really nice right there. And then Conkeldurr also gets some nice rock type coverage with Rock Slide, which is a spread move. And in Trick Room, this could be really nice since it does have a 30% chance to make the target flinch. Like a Guts boosted Rock Slide can do some major damage. And if you're running Sheer Force, well, great. You now have the option for Sheer Force Life Orb instead of Guts. So there is that for Rock Slide. And I'm just going to double check right quick. Nope, that's the main list of what I had for some really good coverage options. But Conkeldurr also gets some really good status options as well. So as far as some status moves go, Conkeldurr gets access to Wide Guard, which is great since it protects It protects both itself and its partner from your opponent's spread moves, and as I mentioned, it also protects you from your own spread moves. Conkeldurr also gets access to Defog. The nice thing here about Defog is Defog lowers your target's evasion 1 stage, and it also clears the terrain and hazards on both sides of the fields. So long as you get your defog up, great. You lower your target's evasion. And some of these moves that I did mention don't have 100% accuracy. So if you get an evasion drop into them, or even if Conkeldurr's partner has a move that isn't quite the most accurate on its own, now you're upping the odds of landing that move. I used this on Shiftry about a month or two ago with a Groudon team in Reg G, and Defog was really fun. I really liked it on Shiftry, and honestly, I just feel like I just need to mention the fact that Conkeldurr does get it. Now, probably not going to be the best move on Conkeldurr, but it's some fun tech to have in your back pocket for sure. And then as far as 2 other great moves go, Conkeldurr gets access to both Bulk Up and Curse. Now, the nice thing here too is both of these moves raise your attack and defense 1 stage, and if you're a non-ghost type using Curse, on top of getting the attack and defense, you're also lowering your speed 1 stage, meaning for Trick Room synergy, you're now becoming slower, which means now you're going to be going up in the turn order each time you use Curse. So that can be really nice at the end of the day. So Conkeldurr has some really good physical moves in terms of its own stab fighting options. It's got some great coverage options, and it's got some really nice status options as well. And plus, I'm fairly certain it does get access to Detect too. So there's always the debate between Protect and Detect, and the whole reason why is because of the move Imprison. So basically, if your opponent has the move Imprison makes it so that any moves that are shared between the imprisoned user and anything on the opposing side of the field, it locks them out. So if you see Imprison Protect, that's a lot more applicable than say Imprison Detect, which means you don't necessarily get locked out of your protecting move. Now, Detect does have less PP than Protect, but it's worth it if you're worried about getting locked out of Protect. So that's why you have the option of going for Detect instead of Protect on Conkeldurr there too, and a lot of other fighting types, because most fighting types get Detect. But anyways, not the main point. Now, let's talk about some stats right here. Also, Showdown just lowered my attack to 0. We're going to fix that. So without any investment, your attack stat is sitting at 160 with a neutral nature. If we say go to an adamant nature, we're jumping up to 176 right there, which means we get that guts boost or that sheer force boost, whatever damage modifier of choice we get from our ability, we're going to be looking at a lot of damage. So with a little bit of investment right here, like say we go 100 points into our attack EVs, we hit 190 right there. We're going to start breaking down some walls with Conkeldurr. So that can be really nice. We can invest into some HP. Maybe we go up to, like, say, 199 with 144 EVs right there. That leaves us with 260 EVs to play around with. Now, because Conkeldurr is so slow, you could take out your speed IVs right here and just go for a Brave Nature instead. So now we have exactly 45 speed at level 50. If we wanted to, we could invest heavily into our special defense just to try to patch things up. Like, say, for example, if we go up to like 252 investment into our special defense, we hit 117. That leaves us with 8 points left over, and we could just bump up our HP or our attack to get that extra point, which honestly, we're just going to bump up our attack the one, because I don't want to have the even flat 200 right there on the HP. That's why we put it into the attack. But this could be really nice right here if we had a specially defensive Conkeldurr, and say, for example, if we have, say, screen support off of Grimmsnarl. Grimmsnarl could be a really nice partner for Conkeldurr right here. We're just going to set this to level 50 right quick. We can have the light screen and the reflect, and then this way we don't have to worry about, say, Conkeldurr's defenses being wide open. We get the screens up. We slap a Light Clay on Grimstone. Now we're having 8 turns of screens. Now Conkeldurr is going to have reduced damage coming from all of these attacks. So let's just hypothetically throw something in right here. I think what could be fun for a Guts set is we have the Flame Orb. We have none of these moves right here. I think we can go, like, say, maybe Drain Punch, Knock Off, Protect, or actually, because I made that whole tangent, Detect, and say we go Rock Slide. That could be really nice right here. And now we have a Trick Room attacker with a boost to our physical attack stat from Guts. We get the burn. Our Drain Punch is doing a lot of damage. Our Knockoff is doing a lot of damage. And we threaten to hit multiple Pokemon at the same time with Rock Slide. So that could be really nice. Another thing that could be good too is Alolan Ninetales. Alolan Ninetales with Snow Warning and Aurora Veil can be nice, since that gives us both Reflect and Light Screen at the same time, so long as Snow is up when we try to initially use Aurora Veil. So this could be a nice partner as well. And plus, Alolan Ninetales gets Helping Hand, so right there, we can go Helping Hand. And if we didn't want to, say, like, have Rock Slide and want to run Mach Punch, well, now Helping Hand is going before Mach Punch, and now Mach Punch is just absolutely decimating something. So that could be good. And then another thing that could be good too is Friend Guard. I was going to type in Clefairy, but I want to make a point of mentioning Mousehold could be really nice here. And the whole reason why we have Mousehold is we have the Friend Guard to reduce damage. We have Follow Me for redirection. But we also have Super Fang. Super Fang takes half of the target's HP so long as it connects. So we're really softening something up here with Super Fang, and now Conkeldurr is just coming in and cleaning up with, say, Knockoff or Drain Punch or Mach Punch or even Rock Slide, Poison Jab, whatever damaging move of choice you're looking to do. Mousehold can really soften up something. So, like, say you have a really bulky Pokemon on the field, like, say, Dondozo, especially since Dondozo has the Unaware ability. You could soften them up with a Super Fang, and then Conkeldurr can come in and just land a really good Drain Punch or Knockoff into them. And honestly, one other thing that I just thought of, like, just now, is maybe you could make the case for Stellar, and then this way. Stellar, it gives you a one-time boost to each move typing, but the thing is Stellar will give you a double modifier to your base stab while giving you a 20% modifier to other stabs. Conkeldurr's got a very nice coverage pool right there, so you could potentially take advantage of Stellar right there for just the extra firepower. So anyways, that's my main thoughts on Conkeldurr here. I hope you guys enjoyed listening to me ramble on for about 30 minutes of talking about Conkeldurr. Let me know what you think of it down in the comments below. I'm kind of initially, I don't want to say initially, I'm kind of surprised now that I'm thinking back on it when I did the initial Regulation H video that I didn't talk about it. I really debated on doing it, but I think Conkeldurr is probably within the top 5 fighting type Pokemon for this upcoming format. I think Conkeldurr, Annihilate, and Sneasler easily make top 3. Como-O could definitely be in there as well. So I think we have a lot of great fighting type Pokemon to pick from for Regulation H, with Conkeldurr being right there amongst them. So let me know if you agree or disagree on that as well. Anyways, I have talked on long enough. Thank you guys so much for listening to this. See you later.